I love Borat and that kind of uncomfortable comedy. I love that kind of comedy that involves real life people that don't know that they're in these sorts of uncomfortable situations. I love the way that comedy like that, not just the Borat character, but any kind of uncomfortable comedy like that, can bring out people's prejudices, their flaws, their ups and their downs. And I like inappropriate humour. I like inappropriate comedy. If you have ever seen the TV series Nighty Night, it was only on for 12 episodes. That is so unbelievably wrong. I mean, it tells the story of a woman whose husband is dying from cancer, but she pretends that he's dead already so that she can move in on a disabled woman's husband. And there is all sorts of impropriety about racial stereotypes and all sorts in there. But it's so cleverly done, it's hilarious. There is a scene in that sitcom where the main character dresses up her brother in blackface. Now, her brother is a Scottish man with a perm. It's not actually her brother. It's a character called Glyn who's got a ridiculous twitch. It sounds really, really ridiculous when I even describe it on here. The point is, now it would never be made because there's blackface in it and there's all sorts of other, there's one joke where she actually is impersonating a woman called Floella and Bagabe, the main character who's white. And when someone says, were you expecting me to be black? We've had some very, very, very light summers. Really, really inappropriate. But also in the context of how absurd the characters are and the cleverness of the comedy, it's funny. It's really, really funny. That would never be made today. Little Britain would never be made today. Trading Places would never be made today. So why is Borat, which is a character which trades solely on laughing at someone from Kazakhstan and the stereotypes around that, why is that acceptable, but the other comedies I've just spoken to you about are not? Remember Stavros? Who used to do the Greek stuff, and there loads of money, was the Cockney parody as well of the plasterer who'd made good under Thatcher. All of those stereotypes I thought were funny because they were clever. I never objected as a Greek person. My dad was a Greek man who worked in a cafe with a moustache. He looked like Stavros. He never objected to it because it was funny. We seem to be awfully sensitive about certain comedies, but not about others. And I can't help but feel that because it's Donald Trump and Donald Trump supporters, and I'm no fan of Trump, but I'm also not a fan of double standards. And I can't help but feel that because it's Trump supporters and because it's the right that are the victims of this comedy, which is funny, it's suddenly acceptable. And it's acceptable for someone to accuse Donald Trump of being racist, which is what Sacha Baron Cohen has done, yet he's doing a parody of a character from Kazakhstan. And the first half hour of the movie was based around his daughter, the character of his daughter, being kept in a cage because she's a woman. It's all the sorts of stereotypes that if you did it about anything or anyone else would be unacceptable. So is Borat racist? And is it time that we either got rid of the double standard or we got rid of all comedy that's racism? Because for me, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, sorry, that over there isn't acceptable, but that over there is because that comedian's sort of cool and those aren't anymore. You either have all inappropriate comedy, which is what I would be in favour of, or you have no inappropriate comedy. You can't pick and choose your isms, can you? 0344 499 1000. Gerry K is a comedian and he joins me live via video link. Hey there, Gerry.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks, mate. Very well. Interesting. You made so many points there. I could talk to you for hours about all of them, but I guess we just got to deal with this one.
Well, you are a comedian that is, for our listeners on the radio, you are a black man yourself, so therefore
Indeed,
you probably would have some opinions on the blackface side of things and whether those sorts of comedies, which might be clever or they might have intricacies behind them, about whether they're acceptable and how
Yeah.
you view that in comparison to a character like Borat. Is there a double standard?
Right. Let's start with the blackface thing and my view on this. Even before I was a comedian, okay, I was much younger then, I guess, so maybe my feelings were different. But I always, even as a young man, it was obvious to me when something was racially offensive and when something wasn't, right? And certainly my mum, my dad, everyone I knew would laugh along with white people and non-black people at jokes, sort of blacking up or whatever, at jokes about black stereotypes. Now, this is providing they're not negative stereotypes, and this is what I can never understand. To me, it's right. Okay, so to give you an example of something, so I don't know. So, well, actually, let's talk for a second about. I'm going off people. Let's talk for a second about Indians. Right now, it's generally acceptable context that Indians eat curries. Curry was invented there. Different curries, hot food, right? Hot food, spicy food is generally accepted. That. So if someone makes a joke about Indians eating hot food, then no one Indians certainly don't have a problem with it, right? Certainly don't have a problem with it. So
and that's also been parodied brilliantly by Goodness Gracious Me, who have that really famous sketch about going for an English, because
exactly
which
they
is
turned it on its head.
It's brilliant because it's all up for grabs.
Of course it is, and that isn't offensive. What irritates me about this whole thing is people choosing to take offense, people looking for offense. A lot of it, even way back into the 70s, a lot of it wasn't actually offensive. And you know, ethnic minorities, be they Jewish, be they black, be they Asian, whatever, do you know who laughs about that stuff the most? It's us. I mean, you mentioned being Greek, right? I wouldn't mind betting within the Greek community, I wouldn't mind betting that most Greek people weren't offended by Stavros.
And my dad used to find Stavros hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And the point I'm making is, if that's all unacceptable, fine. If none of that's allowed anymore, fine. But why is it then okay that Sacha Baron Cohen is being lauded for a character which is essentially a racial stereotype of a guy from Kazakhstan? Is it just because he's? Is it because he's pointing that? Is it because the victims of that comedy are also people who are like Trump supporters and that sort of thing? And is that why? Do you think?
Well, I think that yes, I do think that, and I think also, and this is wrong, but nonetheless, I think it is true. He's parodying a country in Kazakhstan that doesn't have a great deal of clout on the global stage, right? You know, it's like let's all laugh at Kazakhstan. We don't actually know anything about Kazakhstan. So a lot of people, I bet a lot of people don't even know where Kazakhstan is. And I guess it's almost bullying, really. You know, it's actually a massive country physically, but they're the small guy. Do you know what I mean? World terms, someone like Kazakhstan is the small guy. You know, you could make a joke about, I don't know, Equatorial Guinea, you know, because it's a small place that no one really knows. You probably couldn't make that same sort of thing about, I don't know, North Korea, for example, and get away with it. And it's almost like, because Kazakhstan doesn't have a lot of clout, he gets away with it. I think also because, and this is a big thing as well, as a Jewish guy, he really does a lot of sort of anti-Semitic stuff, doesn't he? You know what I mean? And so it's almost as though you're turning around and saying, yes, look, I'm having a pop at Kazakhstan and at the right wing Americans, but hey, I'm having a pop at the Jewish people as well. You know what I mean? So he kind of gets away with it, I think, on that level as well.
But that and again, I'm up for all of that. I think that's all great. What I don't like is the fact that there's a blatant double standard. If he was playing a black character and doing a parody of a man from Nigeria, or perhaps a less well-known country like Kazakhstan, but it was a black country, there would be uproar, wouldn't there?
Yeah, I think the difference there again, though, is that there would be uproar, but for different reasons again, and it's still wrong. But nonetheless, if he were doing a parody of an African country as opposed to an Asian country, then he would have to black up, right? So you would have to actually, if we're talking about race now, he would actually be doing an impression of someone from a different race. As it is,
but he's not Kazakh.
Sorry, no, he's not Kazakh, but so that's not racist. That's national. That's
well, I suppose yes, it's a different nationality, but I don't know whether there's a huge amount of difference. Is there?
I think there is to most people. To me, as a comedian, no, but I think to most people, I honestly think
he's allowed to. I'm not knocking you here. I'm just trying to get my head around the rules. So he gets away with it because he's playing his same ethnicity, even though the comedy is trading on the negative stereotypes of what Kazakh people are like, including locking your daughter in a cage and not feeding her, including potentially, I'll play a clip of it in a moment, going to a Christian abortion centre because he's pretending that he's impregnated his daughter with a baby, which again, I don't know whether that's something that Kazakh people would object to, but that's essentially the thread. He's making out that he is horrifically anti-Semitic, which again is very clever because Sacha Baron Cohen is Jewish, but again, he's doing that by parodying people from Kazakhstan. I don't understand the rules because, again, I would have thought that all of that was completely unacceptable in this current politically correct climate, but it appears that when it sort of trumps America that it's the butt of the joke, then the other improprieties around that kind of comedy is forgotten, isn't it?
Well, I do wonder if it's so bizarre, excuse me, it's so extreme, it's so absolutely, inverted commas, unbelievable, one would think, that he also gets away with it. Do you know what I mean? If it was close to the truth, it's, well, I don't know, I'm not Kazakhstan, but it's so, the things he talks about, the things he parodies are so extreme. The whole locking the daughter in a cage thing, it's so extreme. I think he gets away with it on that level as well, if that makes sense. You know, it's so far away from what we could possibly believe is the truth. He's kind of getting away with it on that level.
I guess so. I'm just quite confused as to how he's allowed to. That's all. Well, because I always thought that negative stereotype, okay, maybe it's not racist, but it's at the very least could be considered xenophobic. And like I said, I always thought that prejudice was perpetuating negative stereotypes about a minority of people. Well, Kazakhs are a minority. Gay people are a minority. Black people are a minority. Well, we don't enjoy comedy that pushes those stereotypes anymore, or we're not supposed to. But with this, it's kind of okay because, I don't know, it seems cool to take the mickey out of Trump fans, or I don't know what.
Well, that's another point you make, Cristo, which is something I was thinking, and I was almost embarrassed to ask this because it's like, well, I'm going to, because I really just don't know. When I watch it, to what degree do the people that are in it understand what they're in? This is what I just don't understand. How you mentioned getting away with it. How do the production company, whoever makes it, how do they get away with it? Because to what level do the people that are involved know what they're in? Because they have to know to a point. I mean, there's TV cameras there. You know, he's in places where there's high security.
Well, presumably, he's actually going right ahead and playing the character of a Kazakh TV reporter, and that's how I presume he's getting away with it, and that's how they're getting all the release forms done. But the whole point is people laud it as being clever and hilarious, which it is. I mean, it is, but also it's very clever because it exposes the prejudice of real people on a day-to-day basis. But I don't know what the value is of doing that if you're being xenophobic yourself to do it. You know, it's like, well done, you've got a real win there. You've exposed racism, but you're dressed as a character who puts his daughter in a cage from a country that we're all supposed to believe does that in order for you to expose racism.
Yeah, I mean, I think a comedian friend of mine, Mike McLean, once said to me, do it and then apologise later. And I kind of think that's what Sacha Baron Cohen does. You know, I think he just does it, goes for it. At the end of it, it's a job. He's making a film that's going to make money, that's going to make him a very rich man. And that's what he does, and that's how he gets his following. At the end of it, I'll apologise later. I'll have those conversations later. But how it gets past who knows? I mean, I could say that
because
about
because I tell you why there isn't the outrage about it. And again, I don't want to see his comedy banned. I want to see less comedy banned, not more. But he gets away with it because I think a lot of the people who would normally be outraged by it agree with the people who agree with his strategy to expose the people whom they disagree with. Do you see what I mean? So therefore, if the Trump lobby and the Trump fans, whom, you know, like I said, I'm no fan of Trump, but if they weren't the victims of the comedy, I believe the left, for want of a better expression, would be outraged by a comedy character that was doing all of the things he's doing. I do. But I don't. But I think they reserve their offence when it comes to Borat because they agree with the butt of the joke, not realising how moronic it is that actually Kazakhstan is also the butt of the joke, and you can't have it both ways.
No, I mean, I think the whole point of this, and the question you asked at the top was, is it a double standard? And I guess it is. And it's allowed to go. There are people who rubber stamp these things, of course. I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen has the idea. He's a figurehead. But as you know quite well, full well, probably better than I do, how many sort of, how much box ticking has to go on before the film even gets made. So it probably is double. Yeah, well, there's no probably about it. It definitely is double standard on a, as you say, on a xenophobic level, without a doubt. Because, I mean, I'm intrigued to know there must be some sort of buy-in from the government of Kazakhstan. Surely, wouldn't you think?
Well, I don't think that they were particularly happy about the last movie, but in this one, without ruining it, I mean, Kazakhstan, by the end of it, is sort of liberated. I mean, it's so patronising. It's liberate. You've seen the movie, and you've seen the sort of end of it, that Kazakhstan is sort of liberated as this, that Borat makes it a place that's a feminist society, and that women are now able to vote and leave their houses, and his daughter's able to be a TV reporter now, whereas she wouldn't have been before because she was in a cage, and that's because Borat's saved the nation. Again, could you imagine that being about any other nationality and not being seen as offensive? I'm not sure you could.
No, I don't think. Again, I think that goes back to the point of, and this is absolutely wrong, but I think it goes back to the size, again, not physical size, but standing in world terms of that part of the world. I bet they very, very carefully picked Kazakhstan when they were doing that. It could have been Uzbekistan, could have been Turkmenistan, I guess, but that part of the world, because they're not black, they're not brown, so they're white. So,
But I always thought that stereotypes about minorities were the very thing you're not supposed to have in comedy anymore. But anyway, maybe I'm wrong. Listen, Gerry K, really good to talk to you and get your view on that. That's the comedian Gerry K. And again, I just want to make it clear, I'm not calling for the ban of Borat. I'm not calling for that kind of comedy to no longer be around. I'm calling out the double standard. That's what I'm doing, because there is a double standard. Maybe I'm imagining it, but I think that if you're going to have one kind of comedy, you need to have all of it. Because for me, there seem to be strange rules around this. Do you agree?